Mr. President, how are you going to address the rising price of groceries in the U.S.? We have to bomb Venezuela.
Okay, this is a pretty big deal. We know what just happened in Venezuela, which is freaking shocking. But at the same time, what was leading up to that is that millions of people were saying they're not paying their taxes this year in the US because they think their money is going to places that it shouldn't be. They think there's some corruption going on. I don't know why they would think that.
Is Canada next in Trump's world domination bid here? Let's look at the facts.
Oddly enough, Maduro's capture this morning is going to have negative consequences for Canada, at least our Canadian economy, and no one's talking about this. Check this out.
Hi, so today we're going to see why the US invaded Venezuela, how it is related to my last video, and what are the consequences Canada could face. So we're going to start with the first video. So it's a guy who has a theory. So he thinks that the American citizens applied pressure on the government by not filing their taxes, and maybe that's why Venezuela got invaded by the US government.
Okay, this is a pretty big deal. We know what just happened in Venezuela, which is freaking shocking. But at the same time, what was leading up to that is that millions of people were saying they're not paying their taxes this year in the US because they think their money is going to places that it shouldn't be. They think there's some corruption going on. I don't know why they would think that. But listen to this. According to Grok, which I know it's Twitter's AI, but it says, if everyone stops paying their taxes, and actually a lot less than that, the IRS has zero chance of keeping up with it and would go into a total meltdown. Meanwhile, the US government would have to concede defeat and negotiate with the power of the people for tax exemption indefinitely. So, I don't know. I've been saying for a while, like, if we really don't like the way things are going, there's one way that we can do that's, of course, completely peaceful. The only options out of this are if you do the other side, they have plans for unruly outbreaks. But when it's totally peaceful, that's when their hands are tied because there's only so much you can do to a peaceful population that's saying, no, I don't like this. So if this actually happens, the power roles, people will remember who has the true power. It's us. It's not the little fiddlers at the top who are messing around and, it's us, man. It's the ants from the movie Bug's Life. What are we going to do? We can't let one ant stand up to us because then they all might stand up to us. We are the ants, and I think we're standing up. I can feel it, actually. Let me know what your tax plan is. No, I'm just kidding. But a lot of people, it's going viral on Twitter, and I'm seeing on Instagram, people are saying, that's it. I don't know if I'm filing this year or whatever. You guys, your tax system there works differently than here, but let me know. Should this be global? Should every country stop just for a second paying them? I wonder what would happen in that case. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and follow for more.
This attack was planned way before Americans decided to stop filing for their taxes. It started earlier this November, and this video is going to explain us how.
Breaking news. Over 13,000 U.S. Marines have now arrived near Venezuela, and what's happening in the Caribbean looks like the biggest military buildup since Iraq. Just off Venezuela's coast, Trinidad and Tobago has turned into a full-blown military zone. Meanwhile, the airspace above Puerto Rico has been completely shut down under national defense protocol. 2 U.S. aircraft carriers are already in position, and a third is racing in from the Caribbean. This could be one of the largest U.S. strike packages since World War II. Meanwhile, the U.S. officials are saying that there's no plan to attack Venezuela, but analysts are calling it the biggest military buildup since the Iraq War. In response, Venezuela has warned the United States that if an attack is launched, it will retaliate with its full strength. They deployed their Russian-made S-300V and BKM-2 air defense systems. Both nations are now on high alert, and tensions across the Caribbean are reaching a breaking point.
So initially, the US said they wouldn't attack Venezuela, which they did 3 days after New Year's Eve, and also they kidnapped the president. And now they're claiming they're going to take control of their whole government.
See, we are in a simulation because ain't no way Nicolas Maduro was captured wearing a Nike Tech fleece. In 2026, we got the first verified images. This was literally posted by Trump of Maduro in a blindfold, noise-canceling headphones on this USS ship wearing a gray Nike Tech fleece. The United States is going to be running Venezuela now that Maduro is captured and gone. I kid you not. In the press conference that Trump just gave moments ago, he said that the United States will be running the country because they cannot afford more bad actors to just come in and be another Maduro. And so until they can have a peaceful transition of power, it's the United States of Venezuela. Why are so many Americans angry about Maduro's capture if so many Venezuelans are celebrating it? Well, have you noticed that a lot of the celebrations you're seeing are actually from Venezuelans outside of Venezuela? This is in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is in Chile. This is in Spain, Madrid. And the reason for that is kind of dark because since 2014, which is roughly when Maduro came into power, Venezuela has experienced one of the largest migration exoduses in recent history. Just imagine losing over 20% of your entire population. Since 2014, nearly 8 million people have left, making it one of the largest displacement crises in the world. And there is a fair reason why. Post 2014, the country's inflation spiked over 1.3 million%. And this was before the US sanctions hit. And it got much worse in the decade that followed. Their GDP shrank by about 75%, which is one of the largest contractions ever for a non-war country. They saw widespread poverty, malnutrition, severe shortages of food, medicine, and essential services, political repression. I mean, the list goes on. Venezuela is not poor today because it lacks resources, people, or skills. It's poor because its institutions collapsed. But here's the distinction. The vast majority of 2025 polls show that Venezuelans outside of the country support military intervention, while those still living there don't.
Look, I understand that Venezuelans wanted to celebrate the departure of their president because he didn't do much for the country. On the contrary, he was a pretty controversial and infamous guy amongst the Venezuelans. But I'm afraid that they might regret his departure, because like when the US usually arrive in a country, especially for the oil, they tend to dry the whole economy of the country and just leave like nothing ever happened. Also really important is American citizens aren't celebrating what is happening right now. Because let's say even what they did, if it was in the interest of the US citizens, they wouldn't feel it because for example, right now the S&P 500 is at an all-time high. The US is making boatload of money, but the citizens, they're struggling. So even let's say US extract all that oil, transform it and sells it. I don't think that the American citizens are gonna get bigger paychecks or bigger, let's say, tax reduction. So that's why also American citizens, they prefer not to deal with the consequences of a president who decided to take bad decisions and leave the country.
The people in Venezuela are celebrating in the streets. We did such a great thing for them. Yeah, you know where else they were celebrating in the streets? In Iraq, when we took out Saddam Hussein, who also was a very bad man, who did very bad things to people. Okay, but you know what happened after we took out Saddam? The country didn't get better. It got 10 times exponentially worse. Fast forward to 2026, and we're sitting here. We just took out Maduro. Now we're going to have to spend more taxpayer dollars. We're going to have more boots on the ground to stabilize the country of Venezuela, to act as the occupying force. We can't even take care of our own country. We can't even fix our own problems. And now we're going to be the occupying force and fix Venezuela and make Venezuela really rich.
We are going to run the country, spend billions of dollars. We'll make the people of Venezuela rich.
How about making America rich? I'm not in support of Maduro. I'm not in support of Venezuela. Okay, I'm in support of America. And guess what? We've seen this before. This is Iraq 2.0.
So many analysts think that this might lead to a potential war. And this attack is the blueprint of how to start one. You attack a country, the allies fight back, then allies start forming around the globe and they all jump into the fight. That's why a lot of people are keeping a close eye to Iran for many reasons. For example, Iran is a close ally to Venezuela. The second reason is they have a lot of oil. The third reason is their tensions with Israel. And Israel is the representation of the US in the Middle East.
There is speculation that America is about to go to war with Venezuela. And I want you guys to know that this is beyond just stealing Venezuela's oil and resources. This is about going to war with Iran, and I need you to lock in. These are the top 3 countries with the most oil: Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. Saudi Arabia is America's. You know who's not America's? Venezuela and Iran. Iran and Venezuela have been allies since the 1950s. Both countries are an economic lifeline for each other. They trade gold, oil, they share military and security intelligence, and they both have a shared hatred for America, mainly because America is a bully, point blank, period. America wants these countries to get on their knees and kiss the ring. And countries like Venezuela and Iran are basically like, no, suck on this. And that threatens America's power, right? Because not only are they saying no, they have a lot of oil, which makes them another threat. And then the fact that the US, in retaliation, put sanctions on countries like, Venezuela and Iran, they're still able to prosper. They're still self-sustaining. And that threatens America's power. And so America has been with Iran for a minute, right? There's been CIA coups in Iran in the 1950s. They had Saddam Hussein go to war with Iran. I mean, this year alone, America went to war with Iran on behalf of Israel. And this is the most important piece of all of this. Israel doesn't just want Palestine. It wants all of the Middle East. And this is Netanyahu holding up a map of the new Middle East, which is basically the Greater Israel Project. And Netanyahu has been extremely public about his ambitions. This is him talking about the Greater Israel Project at the United Nations. In June of this year, Netanyahu had convinced Donald Trump that now was the time to attack Iran. So Israel attacks Iran and then gets their handed to them. So much so that the US has to intervene. Iran won the 12-day war. The United States had to step in and call for a truce. America and Israel severely underestimated Iran's capabilities, and that threatened America's power. So now America is willing to go to war with Venezuela and steal their oil and resources because they're going to use that oil for their endgame war with Iran. Iran is the last man standing. If Iran falls, that is the end of the Middle East. And the other side of this is that America's willing to go down for Israel. Let me tell you something. There's only one country that has ever used a nuclear bomb. That's the United States of America. And there's only one country in the Middle East that would use a nuclear bomb, and that's Israel. We all need to lock in and stop this.
So many speculations because of how unpredictable the US is. Some people think that Greenland might be next. Others think that Canada might be next. Because I remember Trump, when he arrived, one of the first things he said was Canada should be the 51st state of the US. At the time, we were laughing at him. But right now, I think that people are going to take him seriously, because he's pretty capable. Today, we're not going to cover about the Greenland analysis. We're going to focus more on the Canada impact. Is Canada the next? How is it going to affect its economy? And what are the consequences?
Oddly enough, Maduro's capture this morning is going to have negative consequences for Canada, at least our Canadian economy, and no one's talking about this. Check this out. I called it this morning and I said good news and bad news. Good news for the end of a narco state. Bad news for the Canadian economy. Canadians have no idea what this means for our oil industry and our economy. A US-friendly president will be installed. The US will lift sanctions from Venezuela and heavy crude oil will flow from Venezuela to the US. This means that Canada's primary customer for crude, the US, will now have cheaper options available. By Canada not pushing through with Keystone XL expansion to Asia and Europe, it will cost us dearly. Trump wanted Keystone XL. He mentioned it several times this year, and now he's got something bigger and better, the biggest oil reserves on Earth. This was the key leverage we had on Kuzma, the US dependency on our oil. Now that that's gone, Carney took too long to negotiate. Trump likely realized that Canada will never supply the quantities of oil, gas the US wants, needs, and instead he diversified. I know this is going to make Carney sweat. It's not good news for Canada's economy. We had a potential for a monopoly and we blew it.
Is Canada next in Trump's world domination bid here? Let's look at the facts. Last month, they released a national security report saying that the Western Hemisphere belongs to the United States and all its resources. Canada is a very resource-rich country, third biggest oil reserve in the world. They just invaded weeks after releasing this security report. The country with the largest oil reserve in the world. And then hours later, Trump jumps on Fox and makes it clear it was about the oil. He says American oil companies are very involved.
What do you see as the future of Venezuela's oil industry?
Well, I see that we're going to be very strongly involved in it. That's all. I mean, what can I say? We have the greatest oil companies in the world.
What do we do about this? When Trump says stuff like this security report thing, and people are like, oh, I hope that doesn't happen, and then he just starts doing it within weeks, what do we do? I think we should be seriously considering the fact that Trump is looking to invade Canada. Part of Canada, his hero daddy is Vladimir Putin, and he took Crimea, and nobody did it. Like Obama didn't do anything. So what's going to stop him from saying Alberta's mine? What do we do about this? Do you think that this is like an actual thing that could be happening soon? Because it's scary what he's doing here. It's terrifying. He's not thinking things through. They clearly don't have a plan.
If the US decides to attack Canada, it would be easy for them, because for so many reasons. I'm gonna start with the proximity. US and Canada are so close that Canada wouldn't be able to see it coming. And for example, Venezuela, when they were attacked, they could see it coming because US had to send many boats and many planes across North America before reaching them. So it gave them some time to prepare their defense, but yet it still wasn't enough. The attack went so fast that we just blinked and the president was in the US, you know. So that's the first reason, the proximity. The second reason is Canada's defense is extremely weak. US used to be the bodyguard of Canada. That's why Canada didn't need to invest a lot of money in military defense. Now that there is a tension between US and Canada, now Canada is taking a lot of money and starting to invest in it. But the problem is those investments, they take time. They need to be analyzed, approved. Then when they order, let's say, boats and planes, they need to ship, and it takes a lot of time to arrive here. Also, Canada was making a lot of money with international students. And right now, the migration rules became way more strict, and it turned off a lot of international students, and that's a huge chunk of the economy of Canada, because the international students, their tuition is huge, and they were contributing in a massive way in the development of the country. So yeah, I think like this is the worst timing to be attacked by another country. This is the end of the video. So these are my takes when it comes to the conflict between Venezuela and the US. Let me know what you think about it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think the US will improve Venezuela economy or not? Do you think Canada or Greenland will be next? I'd like to know your opinion, and I'll answer as soon as I can. Thank you. Take care.